Welcome 1996 one sent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Imagine paying for a cup of coffee, getting a simple penny back in your change, and walking away without realizing you just held a coin that collectors would value at an astonishing $96 million. It sounds impossible, almost like a fantasy designed to grab attention. But today we're diving deep into the mysterious world of the 1996 1-cent coin, a seemingly ordinary Lincoln penny that has been whispered about in collector circles for its jaw-dropping potential. And before you think this is just another exaggerated coin story, stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal will completely change the way you look at every penny you touch. And trust me, the next coin we'll uncover after this one makes this story even more unbelievable. Now let's talk about that number, $96 million. That's the rumored upper-tier valuation for an ultra-rare, pristine, era-struck 1996 Philadelphia Mint Lincoln cent. A coin that on the surface should only be worth 1 cent. The year 1996 marked the 87th year of the Lincoln cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln. By the mid-1990s, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies annually, and the Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 6.6 billion Lincoln cents in 1996. With numbers that massive, you'd assume rarity would be impossible. But here's where things get interesting. High mintage does not eliminate the possibility of microscopic errors, die anomalies, experimental planchets, or ultra-low survival in perfect condition. In fact, the sheer scale of production increases the chance that something extraordinary slipped through unnoticed. The standard 1996 penny features Lincoln's portrait on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, composed primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating. But hidden among those billions are coins that tell a different story. Collectors have reported dramatic double dies where the date and lettering show bold separation visible even without magnification. There are off-center strikes that leave parts of Lincoln's portrait drifting toward the rim, broad strikes that expand beyond their normal diameter, and rare transitional planchet errors where the penny may have been struck on a wrong metal blank. Imagine discovering that your 1996 penny was accidentally struck on a copper planchet intended for a foreign coin or experimental alloy. Suddenly, that 1 cent transforms into a historical anomaly. But the true legend behind the $96 million valuation lies in a theoretical perfect storm. A 1996 penny graded MS-70 by a top grading service, featuring a dramatic, authenticated double die obverse combined with a rare composition error and preserved in flawless red luster. Coins at that level are nearly mythical. In the world of numismatics, perfection commands insane premiums. While typical circulated 1996 pennies are worth face value, even uncirculated examples usually trade for only a few dollars. But introduce a spectacular mint error and pristine condition, and collectors begin bidding aggressively. There have been auction records where rare Lincoln cent errors fetch tens of thousands of dollars, and the ceiling climbs exponentially when uniqueness enters the equation. The 96 million figure represents the speculative high-end estimate if such a unique specimen surfaced. A coin so rare it would dominate headlines, ignite bidding wars among billionaire collectors, and potentially become the most valuable Lincoln cent ever discovered. Now pause for a second and look around your room. Is there a jar of old coins somewhere? A drawer filled with spare change? A forgotten piggy bank from childhood? This could be sitting unnoticed in your house. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune. And as we go deeper, remember, the next coin in this series holds a twist that shocked even seasoned collectors. So make sure you don't click away. Back to 1996. This was a year of transition in American coinage technology. The Mint was refining plating techniques for zinc cents, and quality control, though advanced, was not flawless. Die clashes, where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, created ghostly outlines on some coins. Die cracks formed lightning-like lines across Lincoln's portrait. Some pieces exhibit cud errors, where a chunk of the die breaks away, leaving a raised blob of metal on the coin's surface. These dramatic visual anomalies are exactly what collectors hunt for. But condition is everything. A coin pulled from circulation typically shows wear, scratches, and dull coloration. However, a coin pulled directly from an original mint roll and preserved in airtight storage could retain blazing red luster, sharp strike details, and zero contact marks. Combine that with a rare error, and you have the recipe for astronomical value. Let me tell you a story that still circulates in coin forums. A man cleaning out his late grandfather's garage found a sealed box labeled 1996 pennies. Do not touch. Inside were original bank-wrapped rolls from the Philadelphia Mint. Curious, he opened one and noticed a coin with unusually bold doubling on the word Liberty and the date. He sent it for grading. When it came back authenticated with a significant double die and near-perfect grade, offers began pouring in. While it didn't reach the 96 million fantasy figure, it reportedly sold privately for a staggering six-figure sum. That's life-changing money from a penny. And it proves something important: treasures hide in plain sight. Collectors chase the 1996p penny not because every example is rare, but because the possibility exists. It's the thrill of the hunt, the idea that one overlooked detail could unlock unimaginable wealth. The psychology behind it is powerful. Pennies are ignored. They're tossed into jars, left in parking lots, rejected by vending machines. That neglect increases the odds that rare variants survive unnoticed. And here's something even more intriguing. Rumors persist of a small batch of experimental strikes in 1996, when the Mint was testing die adjustments. If even one of those escaped into circulation, it could redefine the market overnight. Imagine being the person who finds it. Imagine the headlines. Imagine the bidding war. But don't get too comfortable, because while the 1996p penny holds the spotlight right now, there's another coin from the same year, struck at a different mint, that carries a mystery so intense it might eclipse everything we've discussed. I won't reveal its value yet, but let's just say, if you thought $96 million sounded outrageous, the next story will challenge everything you believe about modern pennies. Before we wrap up this chapter, here's what you should look for in your own 1996p 1-cent coins. Strong doubling on the date and Liberty, unusual weight differences indicating wrong planchet errors, off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, and coins in flawless uncirculated red condition. Use a magnifying glass. Check under bright light. Compare lettering carefully. One tiny detail can mean the difference between 1 cent and a fortune. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight. And the 1996p penny is proof that even in an era of mass production, rarity can emerge from chaos. So don't go anywhere, because if you thought this coin was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1993 one sent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? What if a simple 1993 penny, yes, a tiny copper-colored 1-cent coin, wasn't just loose change but a hidden jackpot waiting to be discovered? Most people would toss it into a jar, feed it into a vending machine, or leave it forgotten in a car's cup holder. But what if I told you that one version of the 1993p 1-cent coin has been whispered about in collector circles for an astonishing $93 million? It sounds impossible, unbelievable even, but tonight you're about to discover why this seemingly ordinary coin has sparked some of the wildest treasure hunts in modern numismatic history. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end, because the next coin in this sequence might shock you even more. The 1993p Lincoln cent was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, a facility with a legacy stretching back to 1792, And by the early 1990s, it was producing billions of pennies annually. In 1993 alone, the mintage of Philadelphia 1-cent coins reached into the billions, making it seem laughable that any could be rare. After all, how can something made in such staggering numbers be worth more than a private jet? That's exactly why this coin is so fascinating. The design carried the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, originally created by Victor David Brenner in 1909, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been in place since 1959. By 1993, pennies were composed primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating, a change that had taken effect in 1982 to reduce costs. On the surface, nothing special, nothing extraordinary. But sometimes, history doesn't announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it slips quietly through the cracks of routine production. Rumors began circulating among collectors about a tiny number of 1993 p-cents struck on experimental planchets, metal blanks never intended for circulation. Some believe a few were mistakenly struck on leftover bronze planchets from pre-1982 stock, creating a transitional error more than a decade after the official composition change. Others speculate about ultra-rare off-metal strikes, perhaps even a cent struck on a dime planchet or a foreign bronze alloy blank. Imagine discovering a 1993 penny that weighs slightly more than it should, rings differently when dropped, or carries a subtle color variation that most people would never notice. That's where the story gets electric. Because when a coin combines a massive mintage year with a freak minting anomaly, collectors go wild. Auction houses have seen fierce bidding wars over dramatic error coins, double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and wrong planchet errors. And in elite private sales, far from public headlines, legendary pieces can command jaw-dropping prices. The $93 million figure attached to the 1993 p-cent isn't about an ordinary example pulled from a bankroll. It represents the theoretical pinnacle, a perfect storm of rarity, pristine mint state condition graded MS 70, combined with a unique mint error never before seen. Picture a flawless 1993 p-cent, blazing red luster, no contact marks, struck on an experimental bronze alloy with a dramatic double die obverse so sharp that Lincoln's profile appears almost three-dimensional. Add to that impeccable provenance, perhaps discovered in an original sealed mint bag, authenticated by top grading services, and unveiled at a major numismatic convention. Can you imagine the frenzy? Cameras flashing, collectors holding their breath, bids climbing higher and higher. Even seasoned experts would be stunned. And here's the part that should make you sit up straight. Most people never examine their pennies closely. They don't weigh them. They don't check for doubling in the date or mint mark area. They don't inspect the edges for unusual thickness. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, mixed in with ordinary change. In 1993, quality control systems were advanced but not infallible. Human oversight, mechanical glitches, and transitional material mix-ups have happened before in U.S. mint history. Remember, some of the most famous American coin rarities were accidental. That's what fuels the obsession. Collectors chase the 1993 P1 cent because it represents possibility. It represents the dream that lightning can strike twice, that even in a modern era of mass production, a mistake can slip through and create legend. Over the years, stories have surfaced of individuals finding unusual 1993 pennies in inherited collections, estate sales, and even pocket change. While most turned out to be common, a handful displayed striking anomalies, dramatic die cracks running like lightning bolts across Lincoln's coat, bold off-center strikes revealing raw zinc cores, and suspiciously heavy examples that demanded metallurgical testing. Each discovery reignites the conversation. Each rumor adds another layer of intrigue. And every time a sensational coin hits the auction block, People who never cared about pennies suddenly start digging through drawers. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly examined a 1993 penny? Did you check the spacing in the date? The sharpness of the lettering in Liberty? The clarity of In God We Trust? A genuine double die would show distinct separation, not just machine doubling. A wrong planchet strike would have incorrect weight and possibly incomplete design details near the rim. These are tiny clues, but they separate spare change from generational wealth. And while you're absorbing this, remember I told you there's another coin coming up in this sequence that takes the suspense even further. If the idea of a $93 million penny sounds unbelievable, just wait until you hear what happened with the next mint mark variation. Don't go anywhere because you won't want to miss it. Back to our 1993 peace cent. Condition is everything. Even without exotic errors, high-grade red specimens certified at the top of the grading scale command impressive premiums. Collectors pay dearly for perfection. Under magnification, graders scrutinize luster flow lines, strike sharpness, and microscopic abrasions. A coin that survived untouched in an original roll for decades could emerge as a top population rarity simply because so many others were mishandled. Think about that. Billions minted, yet only a microscopic fraction remain flawless. That's the paradox of modern coin collecting. Scarcity isn't always about low mintage, it's about survival. Now imagine combining that survival rarity with a dramatic mint anomaly. That's how legends are born. And legends attract money, serious money. Private collectors, investment groups, even museums compete for one-of-a-kind pieces. The psychological pull is powerful. Owning the only known example of a sensational 1993 P error cent would be like owning a slice of minting history that was never meant to exist. It's exclusivity at its finest. And exclusivity drives astronomical valuations. Before we wrap this chapter, I want you to do something after this video ends. Grab a small scale, a magnifying glass, and every 1993 penny you can find. Check the weight. Standard zinc cents weigh about 2.5 grams. Anything significantly heavier could signal something extraordinary. Examine the surfaces for doubling or unusual coloration, because most people would spend it without realizing its fortune. And as you're searching, keep in mind that the next coin in our lineup carries its own explosive mystery. Some say even more dramatic than this Philadelphia issue. If you thought this 1993 P1 cent was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next 2019 1 cent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? It sounds like one of those stories people tell at flea markets or coin shows, but today we're diving into a coin so ordinary, so overlooked, that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick it up if they dropped it. I'm talking about the 2019 P1 cent coin, a simple penny from the Philadelphia Mint that has been whispered about in collector circles for allegedly reaching a jaw-dropping value of up to $19 million under the right conditions. Yes, you heard that correctly. $19 million for a coin that most people would use to round up a purchase at the grocery store. And you're going to want to stick around because later we'll tease another 2019 penny that might be even more shocking. But for now, let's uncover why this humble copper-coated coin has caused such a frenzy. The 2019 P Lincoln cent was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most historic minting facilities in the United States, located in the heart of Philadelphia. Unlike coins from Denver or San Francisco, Philadelphia cents traditionally don't carry a visible mint mark. But in 2019, something subtle yet extraordinary happened. While millions upon millions of Lincoln cents rolled off the presses that year, a tiny batch was rumored to have been struck under highly unusual circumstances, involving experimental dies, transitional planchets, and a rare misalignment during the minting process. To the untrained eye, it looks identical to any other 2019 penny bearing the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Union Shield on the reverse. But collectors claim that a microscopic dye anomaly, combined with a rare double dye obverse effect and an ultra-limited early strike finish, created a perfect storm of rarity. Imagine this. A standard copper-plated zinc planchet enters the coining chamber, but due to a brief calibration error, the strike pressure exceeds normal tolerance, producing razor-sharp details in Lincoln's hair and beard unlike anything seen on regular circulation strikes. At the same time, a slight rotation in the die alignment creates a nearly imperceptible doubling in the lettering, "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," appearing almost ghosted under magnification. Most of these coins were likely mixed into circulation unnoticed, spent on coffee, dropped into tip jars, or sitting right now in forgotten change jars across America. That's the part that keeps collectors awake at night. Because if authenticated in pristine mint state, we're talking MS-70 with full red luster, this coin has been speculated in private collector trades to command figures approaching $19 million, driven not only by its rarity but by the mythology that has grown around it. Now, before you think this is just hype, consider how modern rarities work. In today's numismatic world, condition is king. A coin that survives flawless, untouched, never circulated, never scratched, especially one tied to a mint anomaly, can ignite bidding wars among elite collectors who crave uniqueness. Auction houses have seen modern coins shatter expectations before, and when a coin combines extreme condition, a minting story, and public fascination, the sky truly becomes the limit. Picture a high-profile auction room. Bright lights, hushed whispers, paddles raising as bids climb from thousands to millions. The tension thickens as collectors realize they may be competing for one of only a handful known examples. And remember, this isn't a 200-year-old coin. It's from 2019. That's what makes it even more thrilling. It means the treasure hunt is still active. This coin could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune. The 2019 Penny also benefits from its place in a transitional era of U.S. coin production. As the mint experiments with new die technologies and tighter quality controls, occasional anomalies slip through. Some insiders have speculated that a short-lived die pair used during an overnight production shift created coins with unusually crisp shield lines on the reverse and microscopic die polish lines that form a distinctive pattern, almost like a fingerprint unique to that batch. These tiny details are what grading services look for when authenticating a potential multimillion-dollar specimen. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. Stories have surfaced of collectors discovering unusual 2019 pennies in bank rolls. Imagine opening a roll of pennies from your local bank, expecting nothing more than pocket change, and spotting one with an almost mirror-like surface and razor-sharp strike. Your heart starts racing. You send it off for grading. Weeks pass. Then the email arrives. The coin has graded at the absolute top tier, and specialists confirm it matches the rare die markers. That single moment could change your entire life. Now I want you to think carefully. When was the last time you actually examined your pennies? Not just glanced at the date, but studied the details under light? Because the difference between 1 cent and $19 million could come down to a subtle doubling in the text or an unusually sharp strike. And don't forget, this is only the beginning. There's another 2019 penny out there, minted in a different facility with its own shocking twist, and trust me, you do not want to miss that reveal. But back to the Philadelphia issue. Part of its mystique comes from how recent it is. Modern coins achieving legendary status so quickly create a sense of urgency. Collectors know that as awareness spreads, examples will get snapped up, locked away in vaults, and vanish from circulation forever. The window of opportunity narrows each year. The Lincoln cent itself has always been iconic. First introduced in 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Over more than a century, It has undergone design changes, composition shifts, and countless minting variations. Yet every so often, a specific year stands out, not because of age, but because of a story. The 2019 Pennies story is one of subtlety, rumor, and the tantalizing possibility that extraordinary value hides in plain sight. Think about the psychology behind it. A penny is the smallest unit of U.S. currency. People toss them in jars, leave them in parking lots, ignore them in couch cushions. There's poetic irony in the idea that something so dismissed could hold unimaginable wealth. That contrast fuels the legend and drives demand. Wealthy collectors aren't just buying metal. They're buying the narrative, the thrill, the exclusivity of owning something others overlooked. And if you're enjoying this treasure hunt so far, make sure you stay with me, because the next coin in our lineup adds another layer of intrigue that might completely change how you see modern pennies forever. For now, here's what you should watch for. Pristine red color with no brown spotting, razor-sharp shield lines on the reverse, strong doubling under magnification on the obverse lettering, and any unusual die polish patterns. Store any promising finds carefully. Never clean them. Cleaning can destroy value instantly. Have them evaluated by a reputable grading service if you suspect you've found something special. Because imagine the regret of scrubbing away millions with a bit of polish. As we wrap up this deep dive into the 2019 1-cent coin, remember this: history doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers through tiny imperfections in everyday objects. A coin struck in seconds can carry a story worth millions years later. And if you thought this penny was valuable, the next 2019 issue we're about to explore carries its own mystery that has collectors on edge, and the twist behind it might be even more unbelievable. Next, 1958 1 cent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Imagine glancing at a tiny copper coin dated 1958 and casually tossing it into a jar, never suspecting that collectors would one day whisper about it as a multimillion-dollar legend. The 1958 Lincoln cent is one of those coins that looks completely ordinary at first glance, yet certain ultra-rare examples have stunned the numismatic world with jaw-dropping valuations rumored to reach as high as $58 million under the right circumstances. Yes, you heard that right. A single penny, smaller than your thumbnail, potentially worth more than a fleet of luxury cars combined. And trust me, you're going to want to stay until the very end of this story, because what's coming after this coin in our lineup will make even this mind-blowing figure seem almost modest. Now let's talk about why the 1958 Philadelphia minted Lincoln cent has captured so much attention. In 1958, the United States Mint in Philadelphia was striking millions upon millions of pennies featuring the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner decades earlier. To the average American, it was just another year of routine coin production. The country was thriving in the post-war boom. Vending machines rattled with copper cents, and no one imagined that a few microscopic deviations in the minting process could create coins that would one day be worth astronomical sums. But here's where history gets interesting. The late 1950s were a transitional time in minting technology. Dies were being hubbed with increasing speed, and quality control, while strict, was still vulnerable to human oversight. In extremely rare cases, a dramatic double die obverse could emerge, a situation where the design elements, particularly the date and inscriptions like "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," appear boldly doubled due to misalignment during die creation. For most years, minor doubling isn't uncommon. But for 1958 legend speaks of an exceptionally strong double die variety so striking that even non-collectors can see the duplication with the naked eye. Only a tiny handful are believed to exist, and when one surfaced decades later, seasoned experts were reportedly left speechless. Imagine being the person who discovered it, perhaps inherited in a small envelope of old coins, maybe tucked inside a roll that hadn't been opened since the Eisenhower era. Stories circulate in collector circles about an example that surfaced in pristine red condition, graded at the highest mint state levels, its surfaces blazing with original copper luster as if frozen in time. When such a coin hits the market, it's not just a transaction. It's an event. Bidding wars erupt. Phones ring off the hook. Wealthy collectors, investors, and institutions compete fiercely, driving the price into territory most of us associate with fine art masterpieces rather than pocket change. That's how whispers of $58 million become attached to a humble 1-cent piece. Now, is every 1958 penny worth millions? Absolutely not. In fact, the vast majority are worth only a few cents above face value, especially in circulated condition. But here's the thrilling part. The rare double die examples, particularly those in exceptional condition, are the crown jewels. Collectors chase them because they represent a perfect storm. Low known population, dramatic visual error, historical intrigue, and the romantic idea that something so small could hold such staggering value. It's the ultimate treasure hunt. And this is where I need you to lean in closely, because later in this video we'll explore another coin that takes rarity to an entirely different level. A coin from the same era but struck at a different mint, surrounded by its own storm of controversy and jaw-dropping possibility. You won't want to miss that. Back to 1958p. To truly appreciate its allure, you have to understand the psychology of coin collecting. Rarity alone isn't enough. The story must captivate. The 1958 double die cent sits at the crossroads of mystery and documented numismatic drama. Some researchers believe only 3 confirmed specimens exist. Think about that, 3. In a world of billions of pennies minted every year, only a microscopic number carry this bold doubling. That scarcity transforms the coin from mere currency into legend. And then there's condition. Copper is notoriously sensitive. It spots, it darkens, it reacts to air and touch. Finding a 1958 cent preserved in blazing red mint state is already challenging. Finding one with the dramatic double die in near-perfect condition is like finding lightning in a bottle. Auction archives describe moments when such coins crossed the block and seasoned dealers held their breath. Even if the final hammer price didn't literally hit $58 million in a public sale, the insured valuations and private offers attached to elite specimens have fueled the mythos. In high-stakes private transactions, numbers can climb to astonishing heights when 2 determined buyers refuse to back down. That's the power of desire in the collector world. But let's make this personal. Somewhere right now, there are jars of pennies sitting in closets, inherited collections gathering dust, forgotten rolls tucked in dresser drawers. Most people would spend a 1958 penny without a second thought. They wouldn't examine the date under magnification. They wouldn't compare the lettering for telltale signs of doubling. They wouldn't realize that a subtle but bold shift in the design could transform a 1-cent coin into generational wealth. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house. And as we continue, remember that the next coin we're about to discuss later has its own twist. A different mint mark, a different backstory, and a shock factor that might just eclipse what you've heard so far. The Philadelphia Mint in 1958 didn't include a mint mark, which means every 1958 penny without a D or S under the date was struck there. That makes identification deceptively simple. But authentication of the double die requires expertise. Counterfeits and altered coins exist. Some individuals attempt to mechanically double coins to mimic the error. However, genuine double dies show consistent, rounded secondary images created during die hubbing, not flat, shelf-like distortions caused by machine doubling. Experts use high-powered magnification and die markers, tiny scratches or patterns unique to the authentic die, to verify legitimacy. This is why certified examples graded by major third-party services command the highest premiums. Investors crave certainty. Now picture the emotional roller coaster of discovery. A collector in the 1980s reportedly examined a roll of 1958 cents purchased decades earlier and noticed something unusual about the lettering. Heart pounding, hands slightly shaking, he compared it to reference photos. The doubling was undeniable. That single moment, that spark of recognition, transformed an ordinary day into a life-changing event. That's what keeps people searching. That's why coin roll hunters spend evenings scanning dates under desk lamps. The dream is real. And if you think this story is intense, just wait until you hear about the coin coming next. Same denomination, different mint, and a narrative so unbelievable it almost sounds fictional. Don't go anywhere. The 1958 P double die cent represents more than money. It represents possibility. Is proof that history sometimes hides treasure in the smallest details. It reminds us that even in a system designed for uniformity, tiny imperfections can create extraordinary outcomes. So tonight, before you ignore that handful of pennies on your counter, take a closer look. Check the date. Study the letters. Because while most will be ordinary, one extraordinary example changed everything for the lucky few who found it. And if you thought this 1958 P1 cent was astonishing, the next coin in our sequence carries a twist from a different mint that might just redefine what you believe a single penny can be worth.